At 10 p.m., the mobile phone screen in the presence of thousands of fans lit up brightly. Jungkook stood in the corner of the stage with a restless expression that was rarely seen. Beside him, Jin, with a more serious face than usual, looked at the screen with a sharp look in his eyes. No smiles, no laughter, just tension in the air. "Jin, we can't delay any longer." Jungkook's voice trembled, though he tried to remain calm. "What will happen after this?" Jin replied with a heavy tone. "We're going to lose everything, Kook." Their live broadcast began a few seconds before, and thousands of eyes were riveted on the two idols who have become symbols of happiness and hope for ARMY fans. But tonight, everything changed. An unexpected announcement, which even they themselves could not imagine would happen. Suddenly, Jin took a deep breath and faced the camera. We have hidden something big," he said, his voice trembling, as if speaking with an unbearable burden. Jungkook looked at her with almost incredulous eyes. "Jin, don't." However, it was too late. The words were spoken simply, and thousands of comments filled the screen, as if the world had stopped spinning. Everyone in that virtual space knew they were in the middle of something very big and very dangerous. Jin nodded slowly, as if confirming what had just been said. "We are not just BTS members. We also, it's now or never," Jungkook cut in. He looked at Jin intensely, as if asking permission to finish what he had begun. Meanwhile, thousands of fans watching live began to wonder, what exactly happened? What are they hiding? And before Jin had a chance to speak again, Jungkook stared at the camera, his expression full of confusion and anxiety. "We are trapped in a bigger secret than you can imagine. You will be disappointed, very disappointed." The two men looked at each other for a moment, before Jungkook continued. "We can't go back now. This secret will change everything. Maybe even destroy what we've built so far." The audience fell silent. A few seconds seemed like forever. Their eyes could not look away from the screen, waiting for the continuation of the increasingly shaking. What the hell is going on? What have they been hiding all this time? Why does this feel like the end of an era? Suddenly, in a lower, tension-filled voice, Jin continued. "We're not the only two of us in this. There are more people involved. Someone out there who won't let us live in peace anymore after this." The words thundered in the air, creating an inevitable wave of concern. The fans who had supported BTS all this time began to feel the inevitable changes. The trust they have placed so far is at stake in an increasingly dark enigma. Cliffhanger. Suddenly, their screens shook. The sound of an incoming call echoed throughout the room. Jin and Jungkook looked at each other, hesitating to answer, but finally Jungkook grabbed his phone. "This is impossible," she whispered, looking at the screen displaying a name they had been trying to forget for a long time. The screen instantly faded, leaving fans in bewildering uncertainty. The live broadcast ended so deeply and shook, but the tension has not gone away. Jungkook and Jin were still sitting in a quiet studio room, accompanied only by the sound of a fan wheezing that felt more excruciating than soothing. Their faces were pale, full of anxiety, as if the world they knew had suddenly turned into a dark space from which they could not escape. Jungkook was still holding his phone, staring at the screen displaying a name he couldn't forget. A name that now carries more questions than answers. "Why is he calling us now?" Jin's voice sounded low, almost mute. "After everything that happened, after everything just fell apart. He knows we can't run," Jungkook replied in a flat voice. But there was clearly an uneasiness that couldn't be hidden. "He knows we can't ignore him. We have a choice, but I don't think we have much time." Jin sighed. His face was filled with confusion and fear that he could no longer hide. "I'm scared, Kook. It's bigger than we thought. More than just BTS secrets. More than just our lives." In silence, they both remember that night, the night that changed everything. The secret they hide deep in their hearts, deep beneath the glittering surface of their popularity. A secret that involves more people than they can imagine. Not only fans will be disappointed. There are much more dangerous parties that can destroy everything. Outside, the ARMY world began to go crazy. Disconnected snippets of the live broadcast, blurred snippets of words, and tension trapped in Jungkook and Jin's expressions circulated quickly. Hashtags began to flourish on social media, with sentences like hashtag secretaps and hashtag what happened to Jungkook. Their loyal fans began flooding their social accounts with questions, uncertainty, and even some hurtful accusations. Jin took a deep breath, trying to collect himself. I don't know where to start, but we have to decide. Otherwise, it will destroy us. It will destroy everyone. Jungkook looked at him seriously. I know, but how can we fix it? If we open everything now, are we ready to face the consequences? Jungkook's phone vibrated in his hand. Again, an incoming call from the same person. This time, without thinking, he answered. Jungkook. Jin. The voice was heard on the other end of the phone, firm, and there was no softness in it. You can't run. You're out of time. It was a voice he knew, a voice they once believed in, a voice that now carried an overwhelming sense of fear. They can't ignore this threat. They can't run from the shadow that's chasing them. If you don't come now, you will see what will happen to everyone you love. The voice continued, full of veiled threats. There is no safe place, no room to hide. Jungkook looked at Jin, his face getting darker. He knew those words were not just empty threats. It's real, and they have only one choice: to face it all or lose even more. Jungkook and Jin stand outside the studio, trapped in a nightmare they can't wake up from. The atmosphere that used to be familiar is now unfamiliar, full of dark shadows that chase them endlessly. Everything they believed in had collapsed in an instant, revealed in a live broadcast that was supposed to be a moment of happiness with ARMY. Jungkook squeezed his phone with trembling hands. Why did you do that, Jin? Why did he call us again? Jin only sighed heavily, staring blankly at the empty street outside. Because we know too much. We are already involved much more deeply than we think. There is no way to get out of this. They both knew that someone had been stalking them from the shadows. It's not just the outsiders they face, but also a betrayal deeper than they can imagine. Someone close to them, someone they trust, has become part of this game. What do we do now? Jungkook asked, his voice almost gone in the cold night wind. We've been hiding too much. There is no turning back. Jin turned to him, his eyes filled with fatigue. There is one person who can help us. Someone who can give us answers about who wants us destroyed. However, before Jin could continue, his phone vibrated. He looked at the screen and quickly recognized the name. It was a name they didn't want to hear anymore. Who is it? Jungkook asked, growing suspicious. Him again? Jin picked up the phone hesitantly, then spoke in a barely audible voice. We don't have much time. I know you want to tell us, but you have to do more than just warn. The voice on the other end of the phone sounded colder than before. You think you can get out of this? You think you can avoid what you've done? No one can escape from the past. Jin gulped, his face getting paler. We have no choice anymore. We need to meet this guy. Jungkook felt the tension around him. Jin, I'm not sure this is the right decision, he said, stealing a glance from the vibrating phone screen. What if it's just a trap? Sometimes we have to walk into the darkness to find the light, Jin replied, his voice filled with determination. If we don't face it all now, we will lose more than just the army. Jungkook and Jin are silent, surrounded by the shadows of the night. That person's voice echoed in the cold air, cutting the tension hanging between them. The name they never wanted to hear again, the face they never imagined would appear, now stood before them. And everything they thought they knew, all the secrets they kept so tightly, threatened to be revealed in an instant. Why are you here? Jin's voice sounded hoarse, almost full of anxiety. He tries to stabilize himself, even though his heart and mind are turbulent. What do you want? The man smiled faintly, but his smile felt more like a threat than a sign of friendship. You think it's just about you? You think this is just about the secret you've been hiding all this time? He was getting closer, and each step felt like it was getting closer to bankruptcy for both of them. Jungkook felt as if the world had stopped for a moment. Every second that passed felt heavier, like a weight that kept pressing on their chest. You know what will happen if we don't do what you want? His voice trembled, but he tried to remain firm. We will not follow your game. There's no choice, Jungkook, the man replied in a hoarse and cold voice, like an approaching storm. You've been in this game longer than you think. You're trapped, like a maze you made yourself. Jin squeezed Jungkook's hand, as if to signal that they should be careful. We're not going to just shut up. You won't ruin our lives. The person laughed softly, but the laughter sounded like an echo in an empty space. Ruin your life? You've been broken for a long time, Jin. Since you chose to hide the truth, you chose to protect that secret. Jungkook felt that the air temperature was decreasing, and the anxiety in him was getting bigger. What do you want from us? He asked again, his voice almost inaudible, yet full of firmness. Your time is up. You'll find out soon enough. As soon as you reveal what you're supposed to reveal. The person stepped back, hiding his face in the shadows of the night. There are only two choices, Jungkook, Jin. You pay the price you deserve, or watch the world you love collapse one by one. When that person simply disappeared, as if swallowed up by the darkness of the night, Jungkook and Jin just stood transfixed, staring at the empty, abandoned place. The silence was stifling, as if they had just been left with more questions than answers. What does he mean by that? Asked Jin, whose voice began to hoarse. What should we reveal? Jungkook shook his head, feeling confused more than ever. I don't know, Jin. But one thing I do know, we can't run anymore. We have to deal with it. However, the feeling that they are being caught in a larger net continues to haunt them. There was nothing they could do but walk deeper into the maze they had created, even though they knew. The deeper they went in, the harder it was to get out. Jungkook felt as if the world was spinning around him, losing grip along with the message he had just received. The photo is too clear. It's not just an ordinary photo. It was clear evidence that there was someone watching their every move. Watch over them in a deeper way than they can imagine. Jin, Jungkook's voice was barely audible. We can't run anymore. They know more than we think. Jin squeezed his hand firmly, trying to remain calm even though in his heart fear continued to creep in. I know, Jungkook. But we must act now. We can't let them dictate what we do. The two of them paused for a moment, thinking about their next move. What should they do when they are under threat like this? They have both lived under the spotlight for quite some time, but this is something different, something darker, more dangerous. Jin raised his face, and his gaze was sharp. We have to find out who is really behind this. If we can find who's driving all this, maybe we still have a chance. Jungkook nodded slowly, though a deep fear continued to haunt his mind. They know that they are in an unexpected situation. They are faced not only with an invisible enemy, but with a secret that is ready to destroy them. Jin, I'm afraid if we don't act soon, everything will be ruined. Army, our careers, everything. Jungkook looked out the window, his eyes empty, full of doubt. Don't worry, Army, Jungkook, Jin replied, his voice firm but soft. They will understand us. But we have to focus on uncovering who is behind all this, who has designed all these games from the beginning. Suddenly, Jin's phone rang again. This time, a name appeared on the screen, Lee Jae-won. Jin looked at the screen, and his expression changed. How could he know? Jungkook approached, feeling the tension growing. Who is it? Why do you look like you saw a ghost? Jin looked away, his eyes dark. Lee Jae-won is a person we have trusted over the years. He's the one who manages everything behind the scenes. And now he knows everything. Every step we take. Jungkook was surprised. What does he want? Why did he tell you all this? Jin took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. He's not just an event organizer or manager. He's more than that. He is the one who knows about our secrets. A secret that will destroy everything we build. Jungkook and Jin sat in a car that drove slowly, under the moonlight that reflected weakly from the window glass. The atmosphere of the evening was tense, as if the world was waiting for what would happen next. Every second that passes makes them feel trapped in a maze that they never planned. Jungkook looked out the window, his eyes full of doubt. What happened, Jin? I feel so far away from our old selves. All of this feels so foreign. Jin turned his head, his face serious but full of concern. I feel that way too. It's more than just a secret we keep. There is something bigger behind all this, something more dangerous than we think. We must be prepared for that reality. Their car stopped right in front of an old, long-abandoned building, surrounded by dense trees. There was no sound other than the rustle of the wind through the small cracks in the walls of the building. In this place, their past seemed to be reawakened. This is the place, Jin said quietly, recalling old memories that had long been buried. The place where it all began, Jungkook. This is where we first met Jae-won. Jungkook swallowed, feeling anxious. Why should we come here? Why did he choose this place? Because this place is a symbol of everything. Everything we hide starts here. Jaewon knows that, and he wants us to remember. Jin looked at the building blankly, as if trying to solve a long-buried riddle. I hope we are not too late. They got out of the car and walked towards the door that had almost collapsed. The atmosphere around them felt increasingly gloomy, as if there was an invisible force pulling them deeper into the darkness. Every step they take brings them closer to the truth they have been avoiding. When they entered the dark room, the sound of a creaking door added to the horror of the situation. The room was filled with old forgotten items, but in the corner of the room, there was a figure standing waiting for them. Lee Jae-won. Stood with his hands folded in front of his chest. His face was covered with shadows. Only the eyes lit up with radiating sharpness. You guys have finally come, he said, his voice containing a cynical tone that adds to the tension. I've been waiting. Jungkook and Jin stood still, digesting those words. They know this is not a meeting that will give them the answers they want, but the answers they need. And that answer will probably destroy them. We already know you're involved, Jaewon, Jin said in a firm voice. But what do you really want? What are you planning? Jaewon smiled coldly, slightly shaking his head. What do I want? I just want you to face it. What are you hiding? I know everything, Jin. And Jungkook, don't think you can run away from your destiny. Jungkook felt his heart beating fast. Fate? What does Jaewon mean by this fate? Jaewon stepped closer, his face getting clearer under the moonlight coming through the broken window. I know the secrets you keep. You think you can control it, but you're wrong. You are not the only ones who have this power. And you know that better than anyone. Jin grinned his teeth. What do you mean? What do you know about us? Jaewon only laughed softly, his eyes filled with hatred and pleasure. You think you live in a safe world, in a world full of lies. You live in the shadow of success and praise. But there's something darker behind it all. Something you choose to ignore. And now, it's time for that truth to be revealed. Jungkook and Jin were standing in a dark room that was becoming increasingly stifling. The screen displaying their personal footage is still lit, creating an almost unbearable atmosphere. Every second that passed felt like the shackles were getting tighter and tighter. Jungkook could feel the cold sweat on his forehead, his body stiff, but his eyes could not escape the screen showing the dark side of their lives. What do you mean by this, Jae-jung? Jin asked, his voice this time no longer full of confidence. He didn't even know if he was ready for what was coming next. Jaewon stood quietly, as if enjoying the feeling of fear that was beginning to haunt them. You think you have control over your life, don't you? But you're so wrong. All this was planned long before you set foot in this world. I'm just a small part of a big story that started long before you knew it. Jungkook felt his chest tightness. Each word Jaewon spoke further opened the door into the darkness they had been trying to avoid for so long. They survived on the world stage with all the lies and secrets, but now, in the face of Jaewon, everything feels fragile. The world they built felt like a sand house ready to collapse. Don't listen to him, Jungkook, Jin said, trying to calm his friend who seemed increasingly anxious. He's trying to pit us against each other. We need to stay calm and figure out a way to get out of here. However, Jaewon smiled sarcastically, stepped closer, and looked at them with satisfaction. You still don't understand, huh? You two are not just idols. You're more than that. You are the key to accessing something bigger, something more powerful than just fans or popularity. Suddenly, amidst the enveloping tension, the sound of Jin's cell phone rang out, breaking the eerie silence. Jin grabbed his phone, and his eyes read the message that appeared on the screen. His face turned pale instantly. Jin, what is it? Jungkook asked in an anxious voice, his eyes fixed on his best friend's phone. Jin looked speechless, his hands trembling slightly. That's from Lee Jae-won. He knows about the secrets we hide. About us. Jungkook felt his body temperature drop dramatically. What do you mean, our secret? Jaewon, who was still standing by their side, only laughed softly, wrinkling his forehead. Do you still think you can escape reality? You two have no idea how much influence you have in this larger scheme of things. Everything you do, everything you choose, has been watched and directed. Now, it's time for you to know who really controls you. Jungkook felt his heart racing. They're already trapped, deeper than they thought. That night, the atmosphere around Jungkook and Jin becomes increasingly tense. They stood outside the old building that was getting dissolved in the darkness, as if absorbing every hope there was. The cold night air pierced their skin, and even though they were only standing a few steps from the entrance, it was as if they were at the end of a world they could not comprehend. Jin looked at his phone screen once more. making sure the message from Jaewon was clearly printed in front of his eyes. Meet me tonight at 2 o'clock. You're out of time. It was just a few words, but enough to shake them. What are we doing, Jin? Jungkook asked, his voice hoarse, trying to contain the growing anxiety. Jin let out a long sigh, frowning. I don't know. We have to meet him, Jungkook. It's the only way we can know what's really going on. But we have to be careful. Jaewon is not someone we can trust. Jungkook nodded slowly, though his heart was filled with doubt. Every second feels heavier. When are they in a position like this? When did they become entangled in the invisible web that now seemed to pull them deeper into the darkness? There's no definitive answer. They can only go forward, stepping in uncertainty, in the hope of finding the truth. As they entered the old building, the atmosphere inside was darker than they had imagined. Their footsteps echoed in the long, empty hallway. The dim lights along the hallway seemed to be trying to defend against the deepening darkness. The tension felt like a mist covering every inch of air, blocking their view. Here, said Jin slowly, pointing towards the large door located at the end of the hall. This is the place he meant. Jungkook felt a strange feeling creep along his bones. There was something inexplicable, a feeling deeper than fear. It was as if they were walking into a trap that had been prepared for them for a long time. However, they could not retreat. They're already entangled. The door opened with a creaking sound, and inside stood a figure they had long feared. Lee Jae-won. He stood with his hands behind his back, his keen eyes looking at them as if knowing their every move. Finally, you have come, he said in a cold voice, almost like the whisper of the night wind. Jungkook looked at her with questioning eyes, trying to find out more about the figure who had long controlled their destiny without them knowing. What do you want, Jae-jun? Jae-won smiled, his steps advancing slowly. I want you to understand. You're at a point of no return. Everything you choose, everything you do, has been carefully calculated. Every decision, every move, it's all part of a bigger game. Game? Jin asked, slightly flinching. What do you really want from me and Jungkook? Jae-won raised an eyebrow, his face full of anxiety that couldn't be hidden. I don't want anything from you. You're just tools. You are part of a larger wheel, and you cannot fight that destiny. Jungkook felt a rumble in his chest. No, we are not tools. We have our own life. Jae-won only laughed sarcastically, his voice sounding like a joke. Then why are you hiding? Why are you hiding from the real world? You two know exactly what's going on, but you close your eyes. You don't want to see the truth. Jin gritted his teeth, worried. What do you mean by the real world? The world you created for yourself, Jae-won replied in a lower tone, looking intently into Jungkook and Jin's eyes. You only see one side of this world, which is full of luxury and praise. But it's all an illusion. The world you know is just a shell of a darker reality. The stronger the world, the more dangerous. Jungkook felt as if the world was spinning. What did Jae-won say? They live in illusions? Have they been under greater control? The question swirled in his mind, disturbing the calm they once had. Suddenly, the sound of the door creaking again sounded, and behind them appeared another figure. A young woman, dressed in dark clothes, with a stern facial expression. Their eyes met each other, and Jungkook felt something strong in the woman's gaze. Who are you? Jin asked, his voice loud, trying to control the overflowing tension. The woman smiled, but her smile did not contain warmth. My name is Haun. I am part of the world that Jae-won is talking about. A world you refuse to understand. Jungkook felt his heart stop for a moment. What is the world they refuse to understand? And who exactly is this woman? Jungkook and Jin stand in the middle of a room that now feels increasingly narrow. The tension that enveloped the air felt heavier and heavier, as if every passing second was a threat to them. Haun was still standing with a piercing gaze, while Jae-won, who remained silent, observed the two men with a terrible, cynical smile. They now know that they are on the edge of a precipice, but there is nothing they can do but move forward. What do you want from us? Jin asked, his voice trembling, but there is still strength trying to maintain. Although his body was stiff, inwardly he was trying to calm himself, yet the feeling of fear that came was so profound. Haun finally opens her mouth, her voice quiet but full of pressure. We don't want anything, Jin. You are too involved in this world. We're just here to make sure you realize one thing. You have no other choice. You can't back down. Jungkook felt a pounding chest. What do you mean? What are you guys doing? He asked in a slightly broken voice, trying to control his increasingly crazed anxiety. Jungkook blinked, feeling that something was unacceptable. No, we're not pawns. We have our own lives. We have a choice. Choice. Hoon laughed briefly. There is no choice, Jungkook. You cannot choose to escape reality. You two are on the right track. And now, you must accept the consequences. Jin grinned his teeth. You think we should just give up, Hoon? We won't get caught up in your game. However, before there was a chance to act, the sound of footsteps was heard in the hallway. The large door behind them opened, and another man came in, this time with a cooler and more authoritative attitude. Jungkook's eyes widen as he recognizes the man. It seems they are no longer dealing with just Jeon and Hoon. The man was dressed in a black suit and carried an aura of inevitable power. He walked towards them with calculating steps, looking at both of them with keen eyes. Jin, Jungkook, he said, you should know that you are only a small part of a big plan. What you see, what you hear, it's all just a little bit of the whole picture. And this time, you have to choose. Accept reality or destroy everything. Jungkook felt that something had changed in him. Why does he feel like this isn't just about the two of them anymore? There's something bigger involved. Who are you? Jungkook asked, his voice almost choked. What do you want? The man smiled faintly. My name is Kyung-ho. I am part of a larger organization, stronger than you can imagine. And you too, you have a very important role to play in all of this. Jin looked at Kyung-ho in confusion. We don't know what you're talking about. We will not be involved in any evil plan. Kyung-ho approaches, his face now just inches from Jin's. You have no choice. You are too caught up in this game. Every step you take, every decision you make, it's all recorded. You are under our control. There's nothing you can do to run. Jungkook felt his body stiff. The feeling of being cornered, besieged, deepened. What they are facing now is not just one person or group, but something much larger. The world they know is an illusion. They never really have control over their lives. Suddenly, there was a strong vibration running through Jungkook's body. There was a strange feeling that arose, as if he heard a deep, threatening whisper. Your time is up. No. Jungkook shouted, a voice full of tension and courage that just appeared. We will not be part of this game. However, Kyung-ho only laughed softly. It's too late, Jungkook. The decision was made a long time ago. You two will soon know how small the world you know is. With a quick movement, Kyung-ho steps back and gestures to Hoon and Jeon to approach. It's time for you to choose. If you dare to oppose us, everything you love will be destroyed. But if you join, you will gain unimaginable power. Jungkook felt his whole body tremble. It's no longer about the two of them. It's about everyone they care about. About the army, about the world they built, about everyone who ever believed in them. And they are now at an inescapable crossroads. Jungkook felt his heart beating faster. His face paled, his eyes wide at the message on his phone screen. Please, save him. One short sentence that shook his whole body. Who sent this message? And who should be saved? Jungkook's mind was spinning fast. Is this a trap? Or is there someone out there who is in danger? He turned his gaze to Jin, who was standing beside him, his expression full of confusion. Jin, look at this, Jungkook said, handing over his phone. Jin frowned, read the message carefully, then raised his gaze full of questions. But who sent this? And why is there only one sentence? Jin asked, his voice low but clear, as if trying to digest the meaning of the message that came so deeply. At that moment, Kyung-ho, who was standing in front of them, came back closer with a slight smile on his face. You can't escape reality, he said, his voice calm and full of control. Everything that happens is prepared in advance. The two of you, along with those around you, have been caught up in a much larger network than you could have imagined. Jin grinned his teeth. We're not going to just give up. Whatever you plan, we will fight. Hoon, who was previously silent, now spoke with a voice full of strength. Fight? What do you think you can do? You're just two people in the middle of a bigger game, out of your control. You don't know who's really in control of this. Jungkook felt an uneasiness that pushed him closer and closer to the end of patience. Enough. We will not be part of this evil game, he said, his voice increasingly full of determination. We'll get out of here. We will fight anything you try to build. However, Kyung-ho raises his hand, stopping the conversation. You won't get out of here, Jungkook. You can't escape the reality that's coming soon. Before Jungkook could utter any further words, his phone vibrated again. This time, there was a new, more surprising message. Jungkook opened the message quickly, his heart beating faster and faster. The message read, Jin, Jungkook, if you don't come now, your loved ones will be gone forever. Jin, whispered Jungkook, his voice hoarse. It's not just about us anymore. It's bigger. Someone we care about, someone we know, will be lost. Jin turned his eyes to Jungkook, his face full of anxiety. Who sent this message? What do they want from us? Kyungho raised his eyebrows, smiling sarcastically. The message is a warning. You have two choices: join our game or watch the world you know fall to pieces. It's not just about you, it's about more people around you. Jungkook felt his feelings of anxiety and confusion were mounting. These messages seemed to shed light on something much bigger and darker than they imagined. Not only are they caught up in this dangerous game, but now the people they care about become part of the threat. Han stepped forward, her face still cold. Your time is running out. We're just giving it one more chance. Join us, and you will get what you want. Strength, influence, everything you've always dreamed of. Jungkook bit his lip, holding back the almost overflowing emotions. Strength? Influence? It's not about that, he said, his voice shaking. We will not give up on you. However, Han just smiles. You can try to fight, but you will always be under our control. Every step, every decision, we have decided from the beginning. Jin held Jungkook's hand. We can't let them win. We have to fight, no matter what. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard outside the room, like footsteps approaching quickly. The door of the room opened very quickly, and a voice shouted, Jungkook, Jin. They both looked up and saw a man they knew. Someone who comes on time. It was Namjoon, the leader of BTS, who now appeared with a serious face, bringing along the other members, Jungkook, Jimin, Taehyung, and Hoseok. They stood behind Namjoon, ready to provide assistance. Wait, Namjoon shouted, his eyes radiating seriousness. Don't move. You two are not alone. Jungkook and Jin stared at Namjoon in confusion. Namjoon? What happened? Why are you guys? Namjoon interrupted their words. We know what happened. We came to help you get out of here. Kyungho just laughed a little. You think you can fight us? Namjoon looked at Kyungho with a sharp gaze. We will not let you destroy what we have built. The manager held a closed welcome party. The staff, background dancers, even Suga and RM attended via video call. All greeted Jimin with a relieved smile. But in the middle of the party, when the music is playing and everyone is cheering, Jimin suddenly dances, alone. It moves quickly, but no longer gracefully. His eyes were empty. His steps are like shadows. Which choreography is that, Min? Asked Hoseok astonished. That. Not from our song. Jimin stopped, staring at them one by one. Maybe it's a dance to a song you haven't heard yet. And then he laughed. Not as much laughter as usual, but a short, cold laugh, as if mocking himself, or all of them. That night, Jungkook sneaks into the recording room. He installed a small surveillance microphone in Jimin's room and connected it to his own cell phone at T316 in the morning. That Jimin's voice sounded on the speaker, speaking to himself. You're still alive in here, aren't you? We will make them pay for choosing me. Or choose you. Never mind, it doesn't matter. But now we are me. And the laughter was heard again. The same laugh. Jungkook was shaking. He realizes Jimin is experiencing a new personality that he cannot control. The next day, unbeknownst to anyone, Jimin goes to Taehyung's old house. The house is now empty, guarded by the one remaining HYB staff. But Jimin broke in the living room. He finds a painting Taehyung made for him. A painting of two silhouettes dancing under a red moon. Behind the canvas, hidden files of brainwave recordings from the time of the soul experiments. I know you're reading this, Jim. If you find him, then he chose you. Promise me, don't destroy the world because of the pain I left behind. I love you whoever you are. Tears fell on Jimin's cheeks, but his mouth smiled slowly. His lips said, you're too good for this world, Tae. That night, Jimin had a dream. In the dream, he was trapped in a white room, surrounded by hundreds of mirrors. In each mirror, he saw a version of himself, sad, angry, laughing, crying, dead. Suddenly, a mirror broke, and from behind him came a figure that looked like him, but with a long scar on his chest and dark eyes. If you can't recognize who you are, then don't blame me for taking over. The figure grasped Jimin's face and whispered, I know how to make the world love me and hate you. Jimin woke up, gasping. His hands are bleeding. Jungkook ran to HYB's headquarters, clutching his phone tightly. His face was pale. The video he watched last night kept repeating in his head, Jimin smiling in front of the bomb, against the background of the concert logo, Rebirth, BTS Live Worldwide. There's no doubt. That's a real bomb. But more than that, it wasn't Jimin. We have to stop the concert. We have to catch Jimin. The staff just looked at him confused. Some even laughed at him. Jungkook, don't play drama. It's the biggest concert of the year. All tickets are sold out. Jimin just came back from rehab. You want to sabotage this? But Jungkook knows. They won't believe it until it's too late. Meanwhile, Jimin stood on an empty stage, looking at the rows of seats that would be filled with thousands of people tonight. In his left ear, a tiny earphone voiced the ticking of a bomb he had hidden in a pile of lighting tools. Perfectly disguised as part of a concert property, he speaks slowly, like a dialogue with someone. They would stand, cry, hug each other. And when everything reaches the top, we end it all. A climax. The eternal. And for the first time, Jimin cried. But the tears weren't because she was sad. They were because she felt free. Before the concert started, Jungkook got a mysterious email that was sent automatically. The sender's address, thv.legacy@unknown-filed-k, the content of the email was only one video. Dark recording with Taehyung's voice. If Jimin changes, don't blame him. The Soul experiment did give him artificial powers and memories, but it also opened up the deepest wounds in him. He has a side that he has always kept hidden, a side that blames the world for loss, for loneliness, for me. If you're really his friend, Jungkook, don't fight him. Keep him company, even if it means drowning. Jungkook sobbed. I'm sorry, Tae. I can't lose him anymore. HYB opened the live stream to greet fans before the concert. The camera focuses on the studio. BTS members enter one by one. The last Jimin. But when the camera turns on, something strange happens. Jimin looked at the camera and said, "Tonight, history will be made. Not because of the music, but because the end of it all. Get ready to welcome the best version of BTS, the final version." Thousands of comments in the chat. Is this part of the concept? Jimin was very creepy just now. Is this a plot twist? Panic management. But too late. The video went viral in 10 minutes. The stadium lights went out. The screams of the audience split the night. BTS's signature intro music plays. Jungkook stood at the back of the stage, clutching an ear mic as he continued to monitor the signal from a small tracker he had put in Jimin's jacket. But the signal's not moving. He's not on stage. But the costumes, the camera, everything goes. He's in control room. And sure enough, security cameras showed Jimin in the technical control room. In his hand, remote trigger, Jungkook left the stage, running to the control room. He pushed the door as hard as he could. Jimin nodded slowly. Behind it, a large screen shows the faces of BTS members performing live on stage. You're not going to push that button. Because I know you're still in there. Jimin smiled faintly, but his face was empty. Me? Or him? I'm just doing what the world wants. Sacrifice. Surprise. Emotional outbursts. Even our music is full of suffering, isn't it? Jungkook is approaching. With a trembling voice, he finally confessed. I betrayed you, Jimin. At that time, I knew about the experiment. I was asked to sign a permit and I agreed. Because I think it can heal Taehyung's traumatic wounds through you. It makes you lose yourself. Jimin is down. So you want to save me? After you killed me? Jungkook fell to his knees. His hands slowly. If you have to die, let me push that button. Let me finish everything. A moment of silence. Jim stared at the remote, then into his own hands. Dan. Jimin walked slowly to Jungkook, putting the remote in his hand. But suddenly, from the earphones, a sound was heard. You think he gave up? Just because of this little drama? Another figure appeared from behind the shadows. The second Jimin. Exactly the same, but his eyes were red, and his smile was hateful. I am part of a program that cannot be deleted. Soul creates a version you can't kill, even if you kill the body. Jungkook and Jimin stared at each other. There is only one choice now. Kill Jimin to stop everything, or let his evil version take over the world. And on the monitor screen, the countdown to the peak concert was only 3:26:03:25. Time goes on, moments that feel like a heavy burden. Jungkook held Jimin's hand, but didn't know if what he was holding was still his old friend. Jimin, do you hear me? You're still there? Don't let him win. In front of them, the original Jimin stood upright, his body limp and helpless. On the other hand, the terrible figure, the new Jimin, the experimental Jimin, smiled maliciously. Do you really think he can come back? You think he can stop? No, he was dead long before today. I am the new Jimin. I have to control everything now. I will change this world. Jungkook felt something gripping inside him. It's no longer about friendship or loyalty. It's about choosing whether this world will be destroyed by the person he once knew as his best friend or face it in a more tragic way, destroying the person he once considered family. The real Jimin looked down, his hands trembling. He knew that what was happening to him wasn't something he wanted, but he couldn't avoid it. Soul has changed everything. His memory, his soul, and even his heart. I never chose to be this. I just want to be able to feel happiness again. But now, I don't know who I am. What should I do, Jungkook? Jungkook looked at her deeply, eager to calm his best friend, but he knew he couldn't just stand still. The world will be shaken by his decision. You're still Jimin, no matter what. I'll help you get out of this, whatever the cost. But the dark Jimin, with his red eyes, laughed coldly. Too late, Jungkook. You're always too slow. All of you too slowly saved me. Now, everything will end. The voice of the remote once again shook in Jimin's hand. There's only a little time left. Suddenly, Jungkook's phone rings. It's a message from Taehyung. Taehyung's voice was calm, yet full of pressure. Jungkook, it's not just about Jimin. It's about all of you. About all of us. If Jimin is abolished, you will lose more than one friend. You will lose yourself. Jungkook lifted his gaze from the phone screen and looked at Jimin, who was split in two. With a heavy breath, he said, "You can't destroy the world just because you feel hurt, Jimin. We all feel it. But that's no reason to just end it." But when the words came out, the new Jimin, the evil version, pressed the remote button viciously. The first explosion occurred. The stadium lights went out. The sound of screaming echoed.